Myself, Ajay Kumar Srivastav. I am senior faculty in botany at Sri Chaitanya. In the previous lecture, we studied about genetic code, that how a sequence of 3 nucleotides in mRNA, which is called as one codon, that codes for one amino acid, and this relationship was called as genetic code. Now we are going to see how that coded information present on the mRNA is decoded to synthesize a particular polypeptide, and this is called as translation. So, decoding of the codons on mRNA to synthesize a specific polypeptide, this process is translation. So, see the definition. Translation refers to the process of polymerization of amino acids to form a polypeptide. Now, the order and sequence of amino acids are defined by the sequence of bases in mRNA. Okay. Now, the problem is that mRNA is polynucleotide and the protein is polypeptide, and there is no complementary relationship between polynucleotide and polypeptide. So, mRNA directly cannot synthesize a protein. So, in between comes the tRNA. Okay. The tRNA, with the help of its anticodon, decodes the codon on the mRNA, okay, and inserts specific amino acid in the polypeptide. Okay. So, tRNA on one hand reads the codon, on the other hand binds to specific amino acid. It means it serves as an adapter between the polynucleotide and the polypeptide. Hence, tRNA is called as the adapter molecule. Now, students, the interesting thing is that by seeing that there is no complementary relationship between the mRNA and the protein, but still a change of nucleotide in the mRNA or corresponding DNA causes a change in the amino acid of protein, it was certain that there is a relationship. So, Crick said that there should be an adapter molecule between the polynucleotide and the polypeptide. Okay. Now, tRNA has already been discovered by that time, and at that time it was called as soluble RNA due to its small size, but it took quite a time to identify that the tRNA is the adapter molecule. Now, let us see the various steps in the process of translation. First of all, whatsoever proteinaceous food we eat, chicken, mutton, egg or pulses, whatsoever, that protein is digested in our cells, okay, and then amino acids, that protein on digestion releases amino acids. So, our cells are a reservoir of different types of amino acids, and in our cells, in the cytoplasm, tRNA are present, but this tRNA is discharged tRNA, means there is no amino acid attached to this tRNA. It has the anticodon, but no amino acid attached to it. So, first of all, the amino acid is attached to the tRNA, and this process is called as activation and charging. It involves 2 steps. First, activation of amino acid. This is done with the help of ATP and a specific enzyme called amino acyl tRNA synthetase. Henceforth, we will refer it as capital E. Okay. And the amino acid we will refer is as capital A, capital A. Okay. So, first of all, what is done? Amino acid and ATP, in the presence of the enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase, they form a complex, amino acid AMP enzyme complex, and the PPI is released. Remember that for every amino acid there is a specific amino acyl tRNA synthetase enzyme. So, this complex is formed. This is the first step called as activation of amino acid. Now, this amino acid will be loaded to the specific cognate means related tRNA. Okay. This is called as charging of the tRNA. So the amino acid AMP enzyme complex reacts with specific tRNA. Okay. Thus, amino acid is transferred to the tRNA. As a result, the enzyme and the AMP are now liberated. It is called as amino acylation of tRNA or charging of tRNA, because now you have given energy to the tRNA. So let us see how this happens. This complex was formed in the first step. This complex plus the specific tRNA. Okay. Now amino acid is loaded to the tRNA. This tRNA is called amino acyl tRNA or charged tRNA, and AMP and enzyme are released. This point is very important. See, if two such charged tRNA come close to each other on the ribosome during translation, then the formation of peptide bond between them is energetically favored. That is why at the time of the translation during peptide bond formation, no additional energy source is required, because both these tRNA are charged tRNA, they have their own energy present in them. And one last point, remember that this enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase has two recognition points. With the help of one recognition point, it identifies or recognizes the specific amino acid, and with the other recognition point it identifies the specific tRNA, and then it combines the specific amino acid to the specific tRNA. This completes activation and charging. Now let us see chain initiation, polypeptide chain elongation and termination. We start with chain initiation. Yes, one thing here, we are emphasizing our study to bacterial protein synthesis. So all references will be related to the bacteria. Okay. Next thing is that in 11th class you have studied that ribosome is the protein factory of cell. Why is it called? Because the process of translation takes place at the ribosome to synthesize the protein. Let us see. Chain initiation. Okay. For this we require certain catalysts called as initiation factor. This involves three steps. First, binding of mRNA to the 30S subunit of ribosome. You know, in bacteria the ribosomes are 70S that consist of two subunits, a smaller 30S subunit and a larger 50S subunit. When translation is not taking place, the two subunits are separated. So first of all, mRNA, with the help of initiation factor 3, it binds to the 30S subunit to form 30S mRNA complex. Next point is attachment of the first tRNA. Since it is the first tRNA, it is called as initiator tRNA. And in bacteria, translation always starts with formilated methionine. So first amino acid to be incorporated is the formilated methionine, and we have already studied in genetic code that the initiation codon is AUG. So you see that the 30S subunit mRNA complex binds with tRNA to form the 30S mRNA tRNA complex. Okay. Now the last step. Now the larger subunit of the ribosome, which is called as 50S subunit, attaches, and for this attachment Mg+2 is required. Okay. So we can diagrammatically see this 30S subunit, this is the mRNA attached, this is 30S mRNA complex, then the initiator tRNA along with its formilated methionine amino acid attached. So this is 30S mRNA tRNA complex, and now the larger subunit of the ribosome attached. So now complete initiation complex is formed, which is the 70S initiation complex. At this time ribosome has two sites, okay, a site and a P site. The initiator tRNA directly occupies the P site. All subsequent charged tRNA, they will first come to A site and then they will move to P site. So with this we complete the initiation process. So So the larger subunit of a ribosome has two sites, a P site and a A site, and the initiator tRNA directly comes at the P site. As you can see, at the end of initiation, the initiator tRNA comes at P site of ribosome. Now chain elongation starts. So our next is chain elongation. Chain elongation has three substeps. See, in first substep, a new amino acyl tRNA, or we can say charged tRNA, reaches the A site. Remember, P site is already occupied. So the new one reaches the A site and forms codon anticodon binding. Okay, the anticodon of tRNA and the codon of mRNA, they bind. Okay, and this process requires elongation factors. You remember, in initiation we said initiation factors. Here it is elongation, so it requires elongation factor and an energy molecule GTP. Okay, so this is the first substep. Now two charged tRNA are lying side by side on the ribosome. Now see what happens. Now a peptide bond is formed between the COOH group of the first amino acid, means the one that was at the P site, and amino acid and NH2 group of the second amino acid, means the one that has come to the A site. Okay. For this, the amino acid at P site detaches from its tRNA and moves to A site. In prokaryotes, it is catalyzed by 23S rRNA and elongation factors. Okay. Remember, while discussing the different types of RNA, we said that 23S rRNA has dual function. It has a structural function and it also has enzymatic function. It is a ribozyme. Why we said that? Because here it is functioning as the peptidyl transferase enzyme, catalyzing the bond formation between two amino acids lying side by side. Okay. One more thing, in the beginning we said that these two tRNA that have come, they already are energetically active. So at this time, no additional energy source is required. It is energetically favored that the peptide bond is formed between the amino acids. Okay. Now the third substep. Okay. Now next charged tRNA has to come. So the A site should be vacated for that. This is done by a phenomena called as translocation. How it is done? To vacate the A site for the next charged tRNA, the ribosome moves from codon to codon, one codon at a time, okay, along the mRNA. So this vacates the A site for the next charged tRNA. Okay. This phenomena is called translocation. Again, for translocation we require energy molecule, GTP and elongation factors. Okay. So remember, every new amino acid that is being added to the growing polypeptide chain, the requirement of energy is 1 ATP and 2 GTP. 1 ATP when it was activated charged, 1 GTP when the charged tRNA is attached to the ribosome, and 1 GTP when translocation is taking place. Now let us see the same by a diagram. Now let us see the diagrammatic representation of the elongation process. Remember, we left our initiation here, that the initiator tRNA has directly occupied the P site, A site is free. This is the first step in elongation. The next charged tRNA comes and occupies the A site of the ribosome, and for this we said that elongation factor and GTP are required. When two such charged tRNA come close to each other, then a peptide bond formation between them is enzymatically favored as well as energetically favored. The enzyme involved is 23S rRNA, which functions as the peptidyl transferase, a ribozyme. So you see, for this point is very important, children, that the amino acid present at P site detaches from its tRNA. It moves to the A site, and the carboxylic group of this amino acid forms a peptide bond with the amino group of the amino acid present at the A site. This peptide bond formation takes place. Okay. Now after that, the A site has to be vacated for the next charged tRNA. For this, the ribosome moves on the mRNA one codon at a time. So due to this movement, this tRNA bearing the two amino acids, it comes from A site to the P site, and the vacated A site is occupied by the next charged tRNA. And this process is called translocation, and this again requires GTP and elongation factors. So now we come to the chain termination. Remember, till a sense codon keeps on coming on the ribosome, chain elongation will continue. Once a stop codon or termination codon comes on the ribosome, then chain termination stops. So see, the termination of polypeptide synthesis is signaled by one of the three termination codons or stop codons. What happens? There are no tRNA for stop codons. For stop codon there are no tRNA, but they are recognized by another factors called as release factor. Okay. As you can see, RF1, release factor 1, recognizes the stop codon UAA and UAG, and RF2, release factor 2, this recognizes the stop codon UAA and UGA, while the RF3 stimulates the binding of RF1 and RF2. Okay. So, binding of release factor, and as I said, release factor becomes active when any of the three stop codons comes on the ribosome. Binding of release factor alters the peptidyl transferase activity. Remember, this is required for peptide bond formation. This results in hydrolysis of the peptidyl tRNA and release of the completed polypeptide chain. It is released from the ribosome, and then the two ribosomal subunits also dissociate, and this causes termination of the translation. Now, polysome. This question has been asked 2-3 times in last 5-10 years. So see, what is polysome? Suppose the abundance of the mRNA in the cell is limited abundance, but multiple copies of the same protein has to be synthesized by the cell. Then what happens? Many ribosomes attach to the same mRNA and they move simultaneously during the chain elongation process. This structure, many ribosomes attached to the same mRNA, this structure is called polysome or polyribosome or ergosome. So see, a group of ribosomes bound to an mRNA molecule. Same mRNA molecule is used to synthesize multiple copies of a protein, a specific protein. See, you see this ribosome, it had started translation from here and it is almost completing. So the polypeptide chain attached to this one is the longest, while this ribosome has just started translation. So the polypeptide chain attached to this one is the smallest, and this entire structure is polysome. Now, there are certain metabolic inhibitors that selectively inhibit the bacterial protein synthesis, different stages of the bacterial protein synthesis, but they do not have any adverse effect on eukaryotic protein synthesis. Due to this, we take these metabolic inhibitors as medicines, antibiotics, to check the bacterial infection or bacterial disease. Let us see the name of the antibiotic and at which step it is causing inhibition. As we can see, tetracycline. Tetracycline inhibits binding of amino acyl tRNA to ribosome. Next one is streptomycin. Streptomycin inhibits initiation of translation by causing misreading. Third, chloramphenicol. Chloramphenicol inhibits peptidyl transferase activity, so it inhibits the peptide bond formation. Erythromycin inhibits translocation process. Remember, we said that the ribosome moves on the mRNA one codon at a time. This is translocation. So erythromycin inhibits this process. Next, neomycin inhibits interaction between tRNA and mRNA, or we can say that inhibits interaction between the codon and the anticodon. So, these are the various metabolic inhibitors of bacterial protein synthesis. Okay students, now let us see some types of genes. Actually, when Mendel gave the concept of factor, or later it was called as gene, so then it was very simple that gene is a physical unit that is responsible for the expression of our characters or phenotype, and it is transmitted from one generation to the other through gametes. Very simple definition of gene. But as our knowledge kept on increasing and we moved more and more towards the molecular genetics, the concept of gene and the definition of gene became more and more complicated. Now, let us see some concepts of gene at different levels. Structural gene or cistron. So, a segment of DNA that is coding for a polypeptide, a segment of DNA that is coding for a polypeptide or protein is called as structural gene. You know that this structural gene will produce mRNA. Now, if the produced mRNA is product of only one structural gene, then this mRNA will be called as monocistronic mRNA, that is usually seen in the eukaryotes. But if this mRNA is product of more than one structural genes or more than one cistrons, then this mRNA is called as polycistronic mRNA, as we see in bacterial cell, very common in bacteria. So, structural gene. Next is constitutive gene or housekeeping genes. These are the genes that are always active. They always keep on synthesizing their product. That is why we have said remain active constantly, because these genes code for such products that are constantly required by the cell. For example, genes that are coding for the enzymes of respiration like glycolysis, or genes that are coding for the enzymes of the terminal oxidation. If these genes become inactive for even a short period of time, it will cause death of the organism. So, these genes are always active, constitutive or housekeeping genes. On the contrary, there are certain genes that are always not active. Their activity is regulated. They have a switch on and switch off mechanism. So, get active according to the requirement of the cell. So, when the cell requires, then they will become active. For example, in Escherichia coli, if lactose is not present in the surrounding, so the genes that are required for synthesizing enzymes for lactose digestion, they will remain inactive. But when lactose becomes available to digest that lactose, the genes that code for the enzymes of lactose digestion, they become active. So, such genes are called luxury genes, and since their activity is regulated, that is why they are called as regulated genes. Next, as you can see, regulatory gene. So, these are the genes that regulate the activity of luxury genes. So, genes that regulate the activity of luxury genes are called regulatory genes. Okay. Next, transposons or jumping genes. We had a concept after the Morgan's work that genes have a fixed locus on the chromosome and they always remain there. But there was a scientist, Barbara McClintock. She performed her experiments in maize and she said that there are certain genes, or she called is the transposable elements, that move within the genome. They always do not remain positioned at a fixed position. They can move either within the same chromosome from one place to the other, or even from one chromosome to the other. So, that is why we have said that they move within the genome. Since they move within the genome, they are also called as jumping genes, or they are called as transposable elements, because they keep on changing their position. Okay. Last is reporter gene. In recombinant DNA technology, we transfer the gene of one organism into the other organism to genetically modify that organism. Now, how to identify whether the other organism has been genetically modified or not, or whether the desired gene has been transferred in that organism or not. For this we use certain genes. These genes are called as reporter genes that give us information that whether the host cell has been transformed or not. So, these are the various types of definitions of genes. Now students, I have come up with two questions that were asked in previous year's NEET examination. One of them you may find a bit difficult and the other one you may find very easy. So, I just brought to show that all types of questions are asked in the examination. Okay, see, first question is, this was asked in NEET 2017. If there are 909 bases in an RNA that codes for a protein with 333 amino acids, okay, because you know one codon consists of 3 nucleotides, okay, and the base at position 901, this you have to keep in mind, is deleted such that the length of RNA becomes 998, okay. How many codons will be altered? You see, up till 900 there is no change, and 901 codon has 3. It means up till 300 codons there was no change, and we have said that deletion of 1 or 2 nucleotides brings about complete change, that is frame shift mutation. It means all the codons after 900, that is from 900 to 998, all will change. So, this will include how many? 33 codons, because 999 codons are undergoing change. So, 99 upon 3 is equal to 33. So, 33 codons will change. So, our answer will be 3. Okay. So, simple. Next is a very simple question. Which one of the following is the start codon? You know that UAG, UGA and UAA are stop codons and AUG is the start codon. So, students, with this we come to the end of this episode. Here we studied about the translation process and about the different types of genes. In the next class, we will study how the expression of a gene is regulated. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the class.